Okay, there was something called the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act passed by Congress. And it required, this was back in the 90s, required for the first time banks had to say who they made mortgages to. You know, they had to, all their minority and white borrowers, they had to spell them out and number them out. So the Atlanta Journal-Constitution decided to take a look and see how the local banks were doing here in Atlanta. What did they find? They found blatant discrimination. They wrote a story called The Color of Money in 4 parts. And they have this nice little map here. The top shows where Atlanta's black neighborhoods are, and the bottom shows where banks never loaned. You see any, connect between the two? It's virtually the same. The areas where black neighborhoods and the areas where banks did not lend. So what happened? This was a total public relations disaster for local banks. Immediately, within 2 weeks of the article, they pledged to make $65 million in mortgages in just those areas that I circled. Banks all over the country took notice of this, and they said, we're going to get our hands slapped too, so we better start making loans to minority people and in their neighborhoods and in some sort of proportion to our total. Otherwise, look really bad. And more importantly, 2 banks will decide to merge with each other. If you can demonstrate that they're not doing, making these kind of loans, you can actually block the merger. So a lot of power. The Atlanta Constitution Journal won a Pulitzer Prize for that, and the team of reporters became famous. It was a great, example of looking at numbers. I mean, there are 7,000 or 8,000 banks, okay? And they all put in all their numbers. So to look at all those numbers, it's quite a difficult enterprise. So they spent weeks crunching the numbers and analyzing them and, came to this conclusion. So, National Mortgage News' turn. I discovered, looking through HMDA numbers, almost complete lack of mortgage lending to American Indians on their reservations. Now, most of those, of course, are out in the West, not here in Georgia. So I wrote an editorial, and I said, quote, "The pervasive lack of mortgage lending to American Indians on their homelands is a national disgrace." And it really was. It was a national disgrace. Let me show you the numbers. Okay, for the years 1992 to 1996, that's 5 years. Okay, there's about 500 Indian tribes in America, believe it or not. Most of them are very small. And they have reservations that if you add them up, they're about the size of Utah, which is a very big place. Okay, so in 5 years, banks extended 91 mortgages to people living in that area, the cumulative size of Utah. It's an average of 18 per year. This is pretty horrible. Okay, so they put in something called the HUD 184 Native American Mortgage, which made lenders a little bit more likely to make loans on reservations, because what they said was, look, if the borrower doesn't pay, we, the government, will pay you 100% of what you paid them out. So it's really a risk-free loan on their part. And so in 2010, there were 183 HUD 184 mortgages. And the total on reservations since the inception of that program, 2,000 plus, so from 91 to 2,000. So things have gotten a little better. Did I change the world? Well, mortgage lending to American Indians has improved, but very slowly. And then in the last few years, we had what you called subprime lenders who were predators, and they went out to the reservations and targeted Indians for bad mortgages. So that was a really bad outcome, which makes me totally unhappy. But push comes to shove. I may not have changed the world, but I think I did give it a good push. And I'm proud of what my newspaper accomplished there.